day all, it's Mike from FlexRadio, and I'm going to walk through the setup required if you've got a PGXL coming or you've just got your PGXL, and some of the software options that you may want to consider. I'll talk mostly about the Flex integration with a FlexRadio, and then I'll give you some direction on where to go if you're using a different exciter, maybe an ICOM, Kenwood Yaesu, or some other vendor, and the things you may want to look at. So let's start here. On flexradio.com, we are going to go to, let's go to documentation first, and you can drop this open and select quick start guides, and let's roll down here and find the quick start guide for the Power Genius XL quick start guide, and there it is there in a viewer, but we'll download it. Doesn't take long. We can walk quickly through what is required here at you've got your Power Genius, you've got a power cable, and you've got an Ethernet cable. You are probably going to have to add your own power connector to the end of this. You may have to work with an electrician or do your own. The Power Genius is switchable between about 100 volts to 250 volts. So it's got a smart power supply in it. You just need to put the right plug on it. If you're running it on standard house current in North America, which is 115, 120, it will run about half power. If you run it on 220, 240 volts, runs at full power. So that gives you a couple of options. And we go through here in the back. You'll notice that there's, as you've already looked at your Power Genius, you've got two sides, an A and a B. You want to, in a 6600 environment, through to the A and B, or the antenna 1 and antenna 2 in a 6600. And as well on... you probably just need one cable for a 64, 63, or 6500. You're going to hook up an Ethernet cable to your home network, just like your radio. Please make sure your radio is plugged into a switch and not directly into the computer. And directly when you plug it into the LAN connector on the back of a computer, that's called a link local connection. And that's not what we want in this case. We want everybody in a common network now. And we've got a number of videos now on our YouTube channel about setting up your home LAN connector. So keep that in mind. Do not hook up a push-to-talk cable. Now this is different than probably any other amplifier that you've used before. So push-to-talk is not required when using a flex exciter. In fact, running both could be problematic, so please, only one cable, the LAN cable. We send commands for the amplifier to go into transmit over the LAN. It's just as reliable as any other method you've used before. The power switch is on the back. So you're going to, once you get it all hooked up, you'll flip it on there. You can leave that switch on all the time. And when you power off and on the amplifier with the front button, it will bring it to full power. When you've got it off, it consumes milliamps of power. There's a little, I think it's a 24 volt power supply, a little tiny guy in there just to keep the power management computer happy and up and running. These next parts are in the Power Genius XL application. I'll go through those in a minute, and a couple of other changes that I'll also walk through in a minute for configuring Smart SDR and the Power Genius. So next, we're going to go to software, and we're going to go works with. Let's go to all software downloads, and then we can. Search Power Genius XL. You'll see that there's 4. And we've got firmware, which gets loaded on the amplifier, and we've got the utility, which loads it on the utility. So we're going to download the utility and just download here. That'll come down pretty quickly. I'll back up a page, and let's just download. The amplifier should come with the latest firmware, but while we're here, let's just go ahead and grab the latest firmware, which is, at the time that I'm recording this, is 3.5.23. So the Power Genius utility installs like any other program. I already have it installed in this computer, so I'm not going to go through it again. And then the firmware, you're going to extract all like any other application and put it in a known place. It'll by default drop it into your downloads folder /Power Genius, but you can put that wherever you want, but just remember where you have it. I happen to have a Flex folder in my documents called Flex and software, and I put it in there, so if I want to upgrade my firmware or downgrade, I can go find it there. After you install the application, you want to look for this icon. It's sort of orangey red. And so we're going to open that. It already sees my Power Genius, that's the good part. We've got a couple of quick steps to run through. Now, it's already connected to my radio, but for you, you need to go into this Configure Gear, pop that open, and you're going to see under Network, you're going to see Power Genius XL is the name of the device, the IP address. You probably have DHCP enabled. That means automatically get an IP address from my server. So for the if you're not sure about networks and stuff, please leave that enabled and don't worry about anything else in the screen. Then go to, and you'll notice, by the way, there'll be an address, and it will be the same as this, 192.168.110.79. That's my personal one, and it says static because I'm using a static IP address. If you understand that, great. If you don't worry about it. It's just a piece of diagnostic information for us, but this IP address here, whatever's here and whatever's here, needs to be the same. If you do not have an IP address here or it's flashing something, please open a support ticket with us and we'll help you through that. Now we're going to go to the FlexRadio tab. And this is a setup for a 6600. For a 6400 or 63 or 65, for the moment, we're just going to set up port A. That means you've taken one antenna port and connected it through. And what's going to happen is if you drop this down right here, it's going to show you your radio. Now I happen to have a 6500 on this network as well, and so you can see that the application has heard these two radios, and I want to pick the right one, so make sure you check your serial number if you have more than one. We have these plain names in here that should help you out. That's something that you probably set. So I have that. I have it as push to talk source. We're always going to have this as LAN. And we're always going to have, just to make life easier, port A on the amplifier connected to antenna 1 on the radio. Very critical setup. And you'll notice here on port B, again, LAN, the serial number, the correct serial number for the radio, it will be the same for 99% of you because it's the same radio, but we're going to use antenna 2. We have the ability to turn the display lightness up and down. Now I have a remote station, so I don't really care if it's lit up. I can slide this all the way down. I generally leave my amplifier running in contest mode. These are the fan settings. Again, I'm not near my radio. You want to try that. And then I would suggest you turn MEFA on, and that's maximum efficiency frequency algorithm. And that will ensure you get the most efficiency out of your amplifier. Now, the way MEFA generally works, and you can read about this, is it'll take you a couple of transmissions in the mode you're using, say it's sideband, to come up with the right drive level for the right RF output. And I generally leave it on all the time. Constant carrier modes, it does it one way, and dynamic modes like sideband or you're going to have about 50 watts in sideband to get full power out of your amplifier, which is probably a bit over your legal limit, so keep an eye on it on the watt meter that you don't exceed your legal limit. If you're running your amplifier on 100 volts or 100, regular house power, 110 to 125 volts, you'll see about 500 watts peak in sideband. If you happen to be using a different exciter, you pick that up here. And as well, now you're going to have to go back and select the push-to-talk source as RCA, which is the RCA cable on the back. And you can have half an amplifier connected to a FlexRadio and half an amplifier connected to some other vendor radio using standard cat control. So there's a couple of choices here. Not all radios are currently supported, but there are ways to work around this. Anything that does Kenwood command set, that's great. You've got all Kenwood copied. And I don't know Yaesu that well, but generally in the ICOM world, if you can change the CIV hex address to match one of these, you're probably going to get it to work. but you may have to experiment or give us a call and see what we've had other customers try. Unfortunately, we don't have every radio known to the HF world out there, but we're ready to work with you on it. All done. We're going to hit save. And that will save the settings, and we're going to do a reconnection, and I turn my amplifier to MEFA on. This is your on-off button for standby or operate. RF power out, your SWR ID is the current, and generally that current value is will show 2 or 4 amps in idle, and that's okay. So after we bring Smart SDR up, we will now see that we've got a Power Genius tab here with all the power meetings. Our amp is in standby, and we can turn the amp into operate by tapping here. If you're using a Maestro or an M model, if you look really closely in the top center of the display, you can tap it in and out of standby. So we go like that. We see that now the amp has come online. We've got PGXL is now ready for transmissions. And we're ready to go. One other thing now we want you to do, before we actually do anything, we want to set a TX delay. And in settings, radio setup, this is a bit different than you may have been aware of before. We want this timing in milliseconds. TX delay here, set this to 20. This just delays RF power going to the amplifier. We've got some documentation out there that say you don't need to. Today, which is March of 2021, we are suggesting that. So make sure if as new versions of the firmware come out that you do read the release notes if that recommendation has changed. And you're pretty much, that's it. And by the way, if you're always using your amplifier and you want to make sure you never overdrive it, you can set max power here to some value you like. Maybe 50 or 60 watts. You can also set it per band. Let's in TX band settings, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but which allows us to set our drive power to pretty much whatever we want. Mine's all over the place, depending on what I last did with the radio, and so that's pretty handy as well. And if you even had transverters, you can set that, but that's of course beyond the scope of the PGXL. So one last thing to show you is upgrading firmware. That's what this up arrow is. We would upgrade the firmware like any program. We'd browse to our firmware file. I have mine in a place here. I'm not going to upgrade it again, but you would select it, hit upgrade. It would upgrade, and then you'd X. When it's done, you'll have to close this box out. The amplifier will reboot. And then you're on the latest firmware, and you can confirm that by reading the FW firmware tag here. So that's what we have for getting going on your PGXL. Read about MEFA, start at some lower powers and drive it up. It's certainly an incredibly efficient way. So hope that helps you out. Have a great day, 73, and go work some DX. Take care.